This is Michael Spedden, and welcome to Fowl Players Radio, your one-stop shop for all of your pop culture needs. We feature interviews from musicians, actors, comics, dancers, authors, and much, much more, up-and-coming artists and beloved favorites. We've got it all, people on stage, backstage, out front, and behind the scenes. Sit back and relax. Let's have some fun.
Hi, this is Randy Jackson from Zebra, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio.
Hi, this is A.D. Adams.
And Paul Williams with Escape the Hive.
You are listening to Fowl Players Radio. Yeah.
And welcome again to another episode of Fowl Players Radio, season number 11. We've got 11 seasons, and things just keep getting better and better around here, especially with tonight's guest. When I was a youngster back in the 1980s, a budding young headbanger at the time, on Sunday nights, before I went to bed to get ready for a grueling week of school, I would listen to Metal Shop, the only show with teeth. I used to love hearing about all my favorite bands and hearing ones I'd never heard before. Metal Shop ran on various stations around the country from 1984 until 1995, and now it's back. Host Charlie Kendall joined us today to talk about Metal Shop history, his career in radio, and his plans for the future with Metal Shop. You can currently hear Metal Shop on 97underground.com on Monday afternoons at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Information on where else you can hear Metal Shop can be found on charliekendall.com. Past episodes can be heard on newhdmedia.com. The Fowl Players of Perryville are back in action. Have upcoming shows on the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, Fifth Company Brewing in Perryville, Susky River Beverage Company in Perryville, and Madigan's on the waterfront in Occoquan, Virginia. If you're interested in seeing a show, and don't forget Maryland Party Boat. If you're interested in seeing a show, our website is fowlplayersofperryville.com. If you're interested in booking us, fowlplayersperryville@yahoo.com or 443-600-0446. Every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern is the Back of the Rack, the Michael Spedden Show on 97underground.com, where we feature songs you forgot you liked, classics that never die, interviews with up-and-coming and classic beloved bands. Go to 97underground.com, download the free app today, and listen wherever you go. And you can also hear interviews, people like Charlie Kendall and the bands that we have in the Baltimore area and national acts as well. Go to youtube.com/@97underground Michael Spedden and hear all of the Michael Spedden interviews from 97 Underground. We thank you for watching and listening to Fowl Players Radio. Our main website is www.fowlplayersradio.com, and our YouTube channel is youtube.com/@fowlplayersradio. Remember to support our guests and their endeavors. Links to their books, albums, tickets to their shows, and much more can be found in the show notes of each episode. So, folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Mr. Charlie Kendall.
Hi, this is Jason Mitchell with Psycho Boy. You're listening to Fowl Players Radio.
Hey there, it's Mark Slaughter of the band Slaughter, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio with Michael Spedden. Right here, crank it up, baby.
A very special guest, somebody that I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with today. A big part of my formative years as a budding young headbanger back in the 80s, listening to my favorite show on Sunday nights right before the King Biscuit Flower Hour. And what show was that? Of course, the only show with teeth, Metal Shop. Metal Shop. Charlie Kendall is here to join us tonight. And Charlie, hey, welcome back. Glad to have you back on the air and doing Metal Shop. So tell us, how did this resurrect itself, and tell us all the good news here,
Well, a couple of years ago, like about 10, my son said, "Dad, metal's going to make a comeback. It's going to come back. All of the old players are going to come back, and Metal Shop has a place within that." And I said, "Yeah, okay. Well, let me look around." And I looked around, and there wasn't a whole lot, going at that point. There were a lot of good new bands, but the older bands weren't finding much footing.
Oh,
So
sure. Yeah.
I was just putzing around and getting tired of doing a lot of nothing.
Mhm.
I'd done all the fishing I can do. I had resurrected like 5 motorcycles,
Mhm.
and I did 3 or 4 old 50s pickup trucks that I completely restored. And
Hey.
this is my retirement, you know. And then I'm like going, fuck. I really miss the radio.
Uh-huh.
And I decided to do a podcast.
Mhm.
And I did a Metal Shop podcast, a little flashback, because you can't play the music.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
only thing I could do it for starting on was, YouTube. So you
Sure,
can't play
yeah.
music on there.
Mhm.
So I would take the interview segments and do some stuff around them. And then I was like, well, this is okay, but it is like touched a certain nerve, but I'm not having a really good time doing this.
Right.
And so anyway, I put 4 of them out there, and I said, nah, okay, that's all right. And I got a call from Michael Brandvold at 3 Sides of the Coin. He was the guy who put KISS on the web. He did their website.
Yeah.
When they first launched, he was in charge of the KISS Army and all that. He said, we have a podcast called 3 Sides of the Coin, and we'd like to have you on. And I said, okay. So I went on, and we talked, and we shot the bull for a little while, and it was very good. I enjoyed it. And he said, what do you guys? I said, I don't know what I'm going to do now. And I got a call about a month or 2 after that from a guy named Corey Harker, who said, I hear you're looking for some old Metal Shop shows. I said, yeah. He said, what are you looking for? I said, well, out of the 586, I only have about 100. He says, well, I think I have about 400. So we started trading shows, and he started bringing up the fact that he thinks that we should bring back Metal Shop. And he said, well, why don't you talk to my boss? So I get an introduction to Ron Keel.
Sure.
Going, Ron Keel, Steeler, we stole your guitar off your record for the opening of Metal Shop. The buzzsaw sound is Yngwie Malmsteen from the Steeler album, which Ron Keel sang on. And I'm like, he's going, well, I want you on my station on KRFK radio. And I'm going, well, I don't really have a show. He said, we'll do it. We will help you get up and running and see if it has legs. So we agreed to do 10 shows, and we did. We did 10 shows, and they went great. We had a great New Year's show, and then all of a sudden we're still doing shows every week.
Love it.
And that was it. I mean, it just got going, and there was a little bit of traction, whole different ball game now.
Oh, yeah.
Because all the people that I call from radio that I used to know are either gone or dead. And all the people that I do reach are the poor guys, they're messengers sitting there in the brand manager's chair. Used to be a program director, but they don't have any authority, and they have to take the thing and shoot it up the ladder to somebody else to have a look at it. So that's where we are now, is in the launching it. Whereas in 1983, I started the original Metal Shop, and it was the same deal. ABC turned me down, NBC turned me down, CBS turned me down, Westwood One turned me down. Everybody turned it down except for MJI Broadcasting. And they said, okay, we'll give this a run. If you don't know the story, even Josh Feigenbaum, who owned MJI Broadcasting, and they had several smaller shows, said, I don't know if it's got legs. I don't know if anybody will play metal on the radio. And I said, it's going to be bigger than you can possibly imagine. And the guy I had producing was a guy named John McGann. And I got John to take Josh to see a show at Madison Square Garden. It was Judas Priest. And it was their first Garden appearance. And nobody sat down. The place was nuts. And Josh was in, All of a sudden, Feigenbaum said, yeah, let's roll. And we got off and running, and we got up to 250 stations. And it went very well. And then grunge came in the early 90s, and things are starting to wobble. Nobody knew exactly how to handle it. Then all the consultants, every radio consultant on the planet, said, you can't say metal on the radio. So you can't say metal shop.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, and they were thinking about dropping the show if we continued to use the word metal. And I said, well, if you take the word metal out of it, you really defeat the entire purpose for it.
Right.
So that's not going to work. So anyway, I think the last show was Slash, from his solo band days.
Oh.
And, and it went well. And I just said, look, guys, the shop doesn't quite cut it. They had different, sounders. There was the buzzsaw was gone, no metal shop, just none of that. It was, all completely different. And I said, this doesn't have any compelling properties to it.
Yeah.
Metal Shop had compelling properties. We did it as a magazine style show. It was the People magazine of metal. I mean,
Yes.
that was the whole idea from the beginning.
Right.
A
Right.
cover story, side shots, all kinds of old stuff, new stuff. And it worked. And it's actually seemingly working again now. I know we're having a damn good time doing it. So,
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, because what I didn't want to hear was, why did I get back into this?
No.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, and a lot of my friends, I told a lot of friends of mine that, we used to all listen in high school. We used to talk about it the next day in the cafeteria. And we would be like, and I told them, I said, your Metal Shop is back and we've got it on 97 now, and they're like, when? They're like Monday afternoon at 4. So guys are listening on their way home from work, or if they're working from home, they're turning it on. And welcome back. Like I said,
Metal Shop Monday, you were part of how we got that whole thing going, because all of a sudden it was stacked up throughout the day on Monday. I went, Metal Shop Monday. There it is.
Right. And now the one thing that I think you played a role that you could play a role in now, and this is something I talk about on my show quite a bit. Back in those days when I was in high school, I was listening, and some of the things that really come to mind when I think of Metal Shop was there was a song called Metal Man by T.T. Quick that I had never heard before I heard it on Metal Shop, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I used to record the shows too. Now they're long gone. I don't have any of them, but we used to record them and listen to them over and over again too. Another band called Jaguar with a song called Taking the City by Storm.
Yeah.
And then one of my other favorites was, this is probably the most in-your-face metal song I'd ever heard. It was called Metal Inquisition by Pile Driver. And
I don't even remember that one.
Yeah. That was basically, it was talking about, we're the Metal Inquisition, and if we catch you listening to new wave, you're going to die by guillotine. And they have a guillotine sound come down, and that was just that was just one that really stands out in memory. And another thing that I remembered too was hearing a version of Cross-Eyed Mary, the Jethro Tull song, but done by Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved that. So, you were turning people on, you were giving these bands opportunities to reach an audience. People loved your show, they're listening, and getting on there must have been like a comedian getting on Johnny Carson back in the day,
It was helpful for bands to get out there. They got gigs usually after we gave them a play or two. And some of them actually broke through, and that's fun. I get emails and texts today from bands. They want to know if we can get a play because they have nowhere to go.
Right.
The thing, it's interesting to me, and there's no diss involved in here, please. I think Eddie Trunk is one of the most talented guys going. He does fabulous interviews, and he has probably the biggest metal show out there from the TV show and the spinoff. As you and I understand radio, he has had the biggest cume of any of us.
Oh yeah, he sure has.
But he doesn't play a lot of current music, if any, at all. Dee Snider won't play anything after like 1990.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Sure.
and-
Yeah.
and-
The House of Hair. Right. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's like, I don't get it
Mhm.
because to me, it's all of it. And metal is it's an attitude, you know,
It is. It is.
It's nothing to do with, you know, what year it came out. But
Right.
that's,
Right.
that's just me.
Right. Well, another thing too is that, with doing what you're doing, I listened to your show this afternoon. I heard Corey Glover's new band.
Yeah.
Him and the fellow from Adrenaline Mob have a new project out. You spun a couple of
Sonic
songs off
Universe.
of that. Yeah. Yes. And then God, I'm looking at my notes here and I knew I wrote it down, but there was a British band you had right after that I thought was great. I just
Metal
couldn't
Church?
remember. Yeah. No, Metal Church you played before that. But regardless, I'm sure we'll figure it out. But the thing that I say, and my show is a combination. My show's called The Back of the Rack. I play a lot of deep cuts. I'll play that UFO song that never became the hit, but everybody loves it off of the album.
Excuse me. My dog decided to join us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We have company, huh?
Yeah. She when she hears me talking, she thinks that I'm talking to somebody.
Right.
And if I'm talking to anybody, it's got to be her.
Right. So she comes in looking to see who the company
Comes
is.
in. Who you talking to?
But
Well, yeah, Back of the Rack I like. That's good, but how many of today's listeners know what you mean by that? I know
depends.
exactly what you mean.
Right. Well, it depends on the crowd. I do have a good listenership because I'm out emceeing shows and I'm working with a lot of bands here in the Mid-Atlantic region.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you always hear people say, and they've been saying it for years, man, there's no good music out there nowadays. There is.
I know.
There
A
is
whole lot of it.
I mean, there's a whole lot of it out there. Not only are there bands that are, coming out with new stuff now from a lot of veteran musicians.
The new Priest album is killer.
It is.
It's very, very good.
It is. It's great. Deep Purple had a nice album out a few years ago. This is probably going back a few years, but that was a great album.
No, they've always done good stuff. Roger Glover is a really great bass player. Good guy.
He is great bass player and also producer too.
Yeah. And he's held the brand together all this time. It's been mostly him.
Really, it has. It really has. And with Rainbow, when he was in Rainbow too, a producer as well.
Yeah.
But there's other bands out there that aren't. And another thing that I'm finding too, in this region, there are a number of bands that were around in the, and I'm talking Mid-Atlantic, that are getting signed now when the material they had then.
Yeah.
They're getting distribution deals. I guess they're, kind of maybe the record companies or whoever the powers that be are like, hey, these guys were good. Maybe they did deserve a shot.
I've seen a lot of that in groups that are coming out. Ron Keel is finding an audience for his stuff.
Yeah.
From the 90s and on, from the late 80s and early 90s. He's put out albums and, greatest hits packages, and they're grabbing them. They're picking them up. And there is something going on because metal music and hard rock music are generally, if they're any good, absolutely authentic.
It is.
I think that is an element that is missing in a lot of music today. It's formulaic. It's all contrived. It was all done in a laboratory, and aided by pitch correction. Metal bands aren't like that.
Nope, not at all.
They get out there and do it to it. So it's really nice to be a part of that and to watch it. Looking at the shows, this 80s big metal show with Queensryche, on Keel and George Lynch. I mean, they're doing shows in stadiums near me. I live in Lexington, Kentucky, but they're in Louisville. That one's coming in there. Loud, was it loud? Louder Than Life. It's also coming up in September. That's going to be monstrous. That's got everybody in the planet on it. I mean, it's 3 days of incredible music. So there's a lot going on. I see Slash is doing well with a metal tinged blues album. Go figure,
Yeah. I thought I saw something, a video of him. Maybe it was an older project, but it looked like he was working with Brian Johnson.
That's the new one.
It is okay.
Yeah, Brian
okay.
Johnson singing an old Howlin' Wolf song.
Right.
It's
right.
fabulous. It's wonderful stuff.
Mhm. Yep, I saw that, and then there's a number of them out there too that are. It's not a I don't mean to disrespect by saying this, but a lot of the guys that I kind of call utility players, the Jeff Scott Sotos, the Joel Hoekstras, the guys that they end up
Solid
showing up
players.
everywhere. Right,
Yeah.
right, and a number of great albums have come out from those guys over the years in various projects. One was called Iconic that had Joel Hoekstra, one of the brothers from Striper, one of the Sweets was in it.
Yeah,
Tommy
Sweet.
Aldridge.
Sweet was the
Mendoza.
singer, I believe, of that particular configuration.
Yep.
I saw something about that as well.
Right, right. And then there's also, Jeff Scott Soto working with Sons of Apollo, and then was just working with I think it was Art of Anarchy, that just had an album out too.
Yeah.
And they're always, and the stuff that they put out never disappoints, no matter who they're working with.
Look, the entire 60s and 70s were made by about 3 bands.
Yes, yes.
As far as the hits we heard on the radio,
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Right.
you had the Wrecking Crew, you had the Motown gang, you had the Memphis gang, you had the Philadelphia gang, and
Yep.
then the New York gang, and they were all tight musicians that all came together, played in the band, and then left separately. It's not many people know those stories because they weren't the stars, but they played so well, they elevated whoever the star was.
Right. Did
That's
you
one
ever
thing I've
see?
always loved is the fact that in rock music, what tends to happen that I've seen is that somebody will inspire other people in the band or in the radio station, if you will, and give them permission to be great.
Right.
Give them permission to be better than they are, and to grow every day. And then it just blossoms and blooms. And you've seen radio stations where all of a sudden everybody is being a killer. Everybody's going in there, like a pirate on the Caribbean, with their knife in their teeth, out grabbing gold and having a great time doing it, which to me those were great radio stations. And I think that's going to come back because every time I'm looking at something about a live station where an owner has actually said, hey, we need to get all live talent and put them in on the air. They're winning, they're doing it. They're going in and they're winning and against the station that's voice tracking. And there's somebody in there voice tracking 22 radio stations.
Yeah.
Not the same thing.
It's not at all. It's not at all. It's completely different. I mean, it's it is. It's the difference between really personalities and just background music. Having a personality driven show, the music reflects the host personality, and but then there's the other ones where they just have pre-programmed. I think it was called Jack FM or something like that, where it's just no personalities. They just slide the music in there and just let it sit and play.
Yeah.
And personalities, I think, definitely have to come back because there were so many great ones over the years. Now, I was reading a little bit more about you because I do like to do my homework before my shows here. And you got into radio at the age of 14. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Boy Scout tour.
Really?
Yeah. We go in, I look around, and it's just the owner, his son, and a receptionist at the front desk, and another disc jockey on the air at that time. And they show us around, and I look up at him and I went, so Mr. McIntosh, do the disc jockeys, get paid? Oh, yeah. I said, to sit in a room and play music? He said, yes, they do. And I said, I'm going to be a disc jockey.
Hey.
He said, you have to have an FCC license. I said, how do I get one of those? He went back to his office and got an FCC study guide, handed it to me, and said, when you've got your license, come back and see me. I came back 32 days later.
Wow.
With the
Hey.
license in my hand.
Wow.
And he gave me a job sweeping up the place. he marched me down the hall, put his arm around, told me how proud he was. We get to the end of the hall, opens the closet door, hands me a broom, and says, here you go, kid. You're in show business.
Sounds like my way into some of my earlier acting gigs, you know. That's that's where you start, you know, that's the ground floor, right? Starting at the ground floor.
Well, he said, sweep the place, and after you're done, you come in after school every day, clean up the place, and when you're done, I want you to go in and read into this tape recorder until your Southern accent's gone.
Oh, yes, yes. That's
Yeah.
another thing too.
Yeah.
As an aside, if you know any John Waters movies, you know how absolutely horrific the East Baltimore accent is.
Baltimore.
And, yeah, and when I got signed by my manager, she said, "Harry, you're a decent actor. I can represent you, but you can't talk like that anymore." So and she's from New Jersey, so I'm like, oh boy,
Jersey. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
But yeah, that's, you know, a neutral, and when you're especially doing voiceover work and everything as well.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing a local ad for, you know, like on a local station or something, they really want you to stop and you get rid of it, and you've got to really be neutral. I've learned that lesson the hard way.
Yep. It's an interesting skill set to learn how to do and then forget, because
Right,
you
right.
can't even think about that while
Yep.
you're interpreting copy or, you know, trying to sell somebody a car.
Right. You're
can't do it.
absolutely right about that. You started this, I guess you were probably just in high school at the time, roughly, starting
14.
14. What was the next step for you?
They put me on weekends running the Sunday morning gospel programming.
Oh, okay.
Mid 60s, you know, you had to have 30 minutes a week of news and public affairs. So they basically, they just, you know, put it all between 6 a.m. and noon on Sunday morning.
Right. I've heard of other people that have started like that, doing the
Do news and weather on the
Yeah.
hour and the half hour.
right.
Hour you do news, on the half hour you do weather. In the meantime, you're playing Power Line, which is one of the big top 40 / religious programs, and then the Christophers, where they come on, and you know it was almost like a Jim Jones thing. It was
Right,
like, you know,
right.
a cultish kind of thing that they did on that one. And then we had a church service from 10 to noon. You know, this is the South, you know,
Right,
Mississippi.
right.
You know, so it wasn't an hour service; it was 2 hours.
Oh yeah, that's very
Yeah.
true, very true. Like the more the Pentecostal churches, you know, church is all Sunday sometimes, you know.
Yeah, no, but this was a refined Southern Baptist church.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but for the first, I would think, in my memory, I think it's 3, 4, 5 months maybe. I couldn't talk at the top of the hour and the bottom. I could only play just as long as I kept everything rolling, then that meant I could go to tier 1. And then once they thought they got rid of the accent, then I could actually read the news and do the weather. So
Sure,
basically
sure.
what I did was I copied Walter Cronkite.
Hey.
That's what I did. You know, I did Walter Cronkite because I'm reading news.
Mhm.
You know, you're ripping it right off the wire. Those
Yeah.
of you who don't know what that is, there
Yeah,
used to be a teletype machine in all radio stations that spit out the news.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
You could read it right off the paper, and that's what I did.
There was a guest I had on my podcast, a fellow by the name of Alan Walden, was on in New York City, and he was telling me about being on in the early 60s. He was in the studio one day just doing his regular programming, looked over at the teletype machine. President Kennedy had just been shot, and he had to break that news pretty much to the world, being in New York City, probably the biggest market in the country.
The biggest.
Yeah. Just had to break that news. I mean, that had to have been just phenomenal, you know. He told me all about it, and that was just like, wow, that must have been almost like a Twilight Zone episode,
Yeah.
really surreal. So so you were doing the Sunday morning part, and I guess then when did you really move into being your own personality, having your own show?
Well, the
Maybe-
first thing that happened was I was just doing the Sunday morning thing, and
Mhm.
it was okay because when you're a 14-year-old kid and you get a $7.50 check a week, and
Oh,
remember mid '60s gas was 23 cents a gallon, so
hey,
it's okay. And I put that in my moped and go ahead. I got a call from the station at school at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The one of the women from the principal's office came and got me, and they brought me to the principal's office, and I'm like, oh God, what did I do? Because I had been in trouble maybe a time or two.
Hey, me too.
And I get in there, and I have to get on the phone, and it's Mr. McIntosh. I said, Charlie, Bob, our announcer's a daytimer. So there was only his son, Robert Jr., and Bob. They were the disc jockeys. That's all there were. There were two of them. We don't know what happened to Bob. He left town. Disc jockeys leaving town was really not much. It continued, by the way, folks, up through the 90s. I was one of those gypsy disc jockeys.
Yeah.
So when can you get here? And I said, well, I get out of school at 3:30. When can you be there? I said 3:35.
Yeah.
So the sun was on from sign on until 3:35, and then me until sign off. And that went on for quite a while, which think about sign off means when the sun goes down. So one day it might be 6:30 if it's wintertime, and in the summer it might be 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah, I got quite a bit of experience for that. And that was actually where I got named by Robert Jr. As B-side Charlie, because we played 45s. And For Your Love was a big hit.
Yeah, right.
But on the other side, on the B-side of it was I'm a Man by the Yardbirds.
Right.
And I like that one better because I like to rock.
Yeah.
And I would do that, whatever Van Morrison and them, I would play the B-side, which was Mystic Eyes, as opposed to, I forget what the A-side was on that one. I remember the B-sides, but that's where I got my reputation, which I carried through my entire career.
Right.
Heather, why do you play so much of loud rock and roll shit? What is wrong with you? I like it. That's why.
Yep. That's excellent. So so you moved on, through that, and had your show. You're playing, the B-sides, kind of making a name for yourself. And I guess from that point, you moved may have gone to another market or something, I guess.
No, actually, I went across town.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, it was my senior year. And the guy who owned the other station, WROX, the big full-time radio station, but it was middle of the road. We're talking Frank Sinatra, Patti Page, yada, yada.
Ah,
He
okay.
said, we'll pay you $65 a week. I was like, I'll be there. So I played Patti Page, and that until, the one of the guys from another town about 40, 50 miles away called me and said, Charlie, you need to be playing a much more youthful music, more in line with you and your age and what I'm hearing that you can do. And I want you to do 7 a.m. until noon. And I will pay you $105 a week.
Hey, there you go.
It was like, I had a 63 Chevy Impala Super Sport. I could afford all the gas I needed. So I went to work for him. His name was Eddie Fritz, who
Okay.
became the president and chairman of the National Association of Broadcasters,
Oh, okay.
and was the primary prick who who brought forth the 1996 Broadcasters Act, you
Mhm.
know, that revised the entire telecommunications industry so you could own no more than 7 stations and then 12, and then it was unlimited.
Right.
That's, to me, that's what killed radio, because it became more valuable as a property than as an entity,
Oh, I see.
you know. So that's, the people in Wall Street wanted to be able to market the stock. And
Oh,
the stock of one station, even in New York City, wasn't enough
right.
to carry
Right.
the stock market.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
but if you've got, let's just say, like, 1,100 stations,
Mhm.
you know, like maybe iHeart,
Right. Right. Right.
your stock is then worth a whole lot of money. So everybody was scrambling, and everybody borrowed more and more and more and more money to buy radio properties until they borrowed so much money they could never pay it back. And that's
Oh.
where they are now.
Mhm.
Those stations will be for sale over the next 4 or 5 years
I see.
if you want
I
to buy
see.
one.
Right. Right. Well, I don't know.
I've already owned a couple. I did that. It was fun, but
Mhm.
no more.
Right. 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 So, then, you were talking about, so you're, moving up, taking the next step here.
Well,
Um,
that move didn't come from me. It came
Mhm.
from Uncle Sam
Sure.
saying, "We
Uh,
want you, young man."
Oh, there you go. I
It was
see.
still the draft
Oh,
in
okay.
1968,
Okay.
and that was it. I mean, I went and got my physical
Mm-hmm.
on April 4th, 1968, which was the day Martin Luther King was shot.
Yes.
My physical was in Memphis.
Mhm.
We didn't know anything about it until we came out, and people are crying on the streets.
Mhm.
We're getting in a bus to get taken home,
Mhm.
and we ask what's going on, and they tell us, we're not. You'll find out when you get home. Shut up and sit down, boy." That was it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they sent me to Armed Forces Radio School.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, AFARTS, Armed
Yeah.
Forces Radio and Television Service.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a radio school, a television school, and a print journalism school. And it's tough. It's a joint services school, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and you're fighting with everybody for a piece of the pie. There were 30 people in my class. I was top of my radio class, third in my TV class, fifth in print journalism. So of course they made me editor of a newspaper in Pensacola, Florida, at a helicopter training squadron. And I went down there and I put out a newspaper in Pensacola, and I went down to the radio station, said, "If you need anybody for weekends and stuff, I'm here. Here's my third class FCC license." So the guy put me on some weekend shifts and liked me. He said, you think you could do mornings and still do your radio thing, your Navy thing?" I said, "Yeah, yes, I do." So I worked midnight to 6, changed into my sailor suit, went and put out my newspaper. 4:00, you get off the Navy, 4:30, you're out of there, and I went to the beach and got something to eat and took a nap.
Yeah.
You end up doing getting a shower, and then midnight, I'm in there doing that radio show.
Right. Right.
The format that he gave me, a guy named Andy Bickle, the format he gave me, he said, "I want you to play something from the top 40 records that they played all day. I want you to play one of them every quarter hour, top 15, 30, and 45. And then here's a stack of albums about 2 feet thick, pick some of these to go in between them. And I went, really? Because, I'd done top 40. You basically played the top record, turn it over, play the next one. That was it. That's all you could do. So I learned to freeform program in 1969, and it was grand. There was a guy on vacation named John Gillis, who was the program director of WNAP in Indianapolis. He was on vacation down there. He heard me. He called and said, I want to hire you for Indianapolis. And I said, got a problem. I'm in the Navy. And he said, when do you get out? I told him. He said, call me when you get out. I was getting out in about 6 months. He said, and I called him 5 months later and I said, I'm 30 days and I'm released. He said, come to Indianapolis. I got a job for you. And I went to Indy and I was the morning man for WNAP in Indianapolis. It was a grand time. We took on WIFE, the big wife, and they were the big top 40 station. We took them on with a little FM stick, and we beat the hell out of them. It was great. It was fabulous.
Great,
So
great.
that's how I got rolling, was from there.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. And I'm sure that, and I've read and I've interviewed a number of people that have been in broadcasting, from the 50s until now. A lot of them are retired, but they've written books, and they're people who are kind of the I guess elder statesmen of the craft. They talk a lot. Sometimes they still make guest appearances around here on television and stuff, but I love listening to them talk about those days, what radio was like back then, and television, being on the news, the different stories and everything. It's really fascinating. I mean, because you're witnessing a lot of history right there. And I'm sure, and you're with you too. I mean, you've seen a lot of bands come and go. You remember when these bands broke, you got their records in their hands and you're starting to play them on the radio for people. That must have been really interesting for you too, huh?
Yeah, I got about 28 gold albums.
Yeah, it looks like
platinum.
you've got some behind you there.
Yeah,
What do you
there's
have?
a few in there.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. My first gold record
Mhm.
was Locomotion by Grand Funk.
Oh,
It was
sure.
a
Yeah.
45, just a little 45 in those
Mhm.
days. That was 71, 70, I think it was 71.
That sounds about right. That sounds
Yeah, they had
about
transferred me from Indy to a new station they bought, WVBF in
Mhm.
Boston.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It became F105 is what they ended up calling eventually.
Sure.
And
Sure.
They put me up there, and I was the music director, and we had the great job of kicking WRKO's ass.
Oh, okay.
It was
Okay.
fun.
Yeah. It sounds like it. So I know that you had this this opportunity to move into doing metal shop, and you told us about how this really came to be. How you were able to sell it, and the Judas Priest concert really helped you. Seeing how people were
That was the
responding
closer
to it.
right there.
Yeah. Do they know that? Have you? I'm sure you've met them, and did you?
I
tell them
have, but
that,
no,
or-
we've never traded the story.
Okay.
Um, The first, there was about to be a discussion about it, but Rob, this is 1984,
Mhm.
and we were at a meeting. There were like 2 or 3 of us, Scott Muni and I think Dave Herman and a couple, and me from WNEW-FM, and Judas Priest, and the record label. I'm trying to remember. Was it Columbia? Yeah, because it was Paul Rappaport. Now I remember, who was
Yep.
the music guy from CBS Columbia Records.
That sounds
And
right.
we were at a dinner,
Mhm.
and when you have that many people going, it's hard to have a conversation, of, hey, I want to thank you for that just didn't get a chance to do that. About the time I thought I was going to have that opportunity, someone hit on Rob, and that was it. He was gone.
Right.
You know, sex rules still.
Yeah, that's the head that makes all the decisions. I guess
It does.
right?
It does. It's these are the lowest IQ decisions you've ever made, right there.
Oh man. Yep. So all right. So now you're on KRFK. It looks like you're really gaining some momentum with this here, and
I hope so.
just me and a lot of
it's
other
a trek.
people. Yeah, me and a lot of other people are just like, glad. My God, thank God, Metal Shop. I love it. I've been listening. What do you think? What's what are the plans? I mean, I guess you're planning to continue with it as long as you can, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of it's still fun. It's
Yeah.
still a
Mhm.
joy to do.
Right,
And when
right.
you can do something that you're fairly good at,
Mhm.
And do it well, and it makes other people happy, and it makes you happy,
Yeah.
that's a win-win. That's
Mhm.
that. So I'm enjoying that part of it.
Mhm.
Feeling my way around the social media space is also a whole new can of worms.
Oh yeah, it sure
'Cause
is.
that's altogether different.
Mhm.
I've picked up another skill, which is doing video promos.
Yes, me too.
I've done I don't know how many promos I've done. I made a living doing promos. I had a company called Kendall Energies, and I had 105 radio stations I did voiceovers for.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the late 80s. I picked it up in 88, 89, and I had 105 stations. You're in a studio from 9, 10 o'clock in the morning till midnight every freaking day.
Wow.
It was a grind because you're not working with digital anything. It was all reel to reel. I had an 8-track machine and 4 reel to reel Otaris, and it got easier once we got DAT player in there. The first DAT player was a digital VHS machine.
Yeah.
It gave me the chance to master all my stuff, so I didn't have all these little reels sitting around.
Oh yeah, I remember those days. Yep.
Yeah, it was wild. So I forgot how I got off on that.
But you were just talking about how things are going well, the momentum's picking up.
We picked up stations. We've got about 12 stations now, which I mean, we just started trying to get stations in February.
Right.
I think that's pretty good, and we'll continue to pick up. So if anybody wants to get on board, go to charliekendall.com and you'll find all the contact information you need from me right now. You can get the show. It's free. Don't cost you nothing. Run my commercials. Thank you very much.
Right. And you can find, there are spots out there if you do want to listen to the, you could say the back of the rack of the Metal Shop shows, right?
Yes.
You can find them. There's a couple sites where they're archived and you can listen to those as well, correct?
You mean the old first original shows?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Those are only available at this point in time on New HD New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is New HD Media. It is a charity station.
Okay.
It is designed strictly for people with autism and other disabilities. I mean, we've got autistic DJs there. You've got DJs who are blind. You've got DJs who have other disabilities. They can't walk. They can't do this.
Oh,
but
sure.
They can get on a microphone and play and have fun, which is what you and I get to do for a living.
Yeah.
Those people with any sort of disability or they can't get a job in this game.
Sure.
And the guy, Zach Martin, who put the station together, he made it happen. So basically, I gave him all of the Metal Shop shows I had. And I said, if you run them, if anybody has a problem, tell them, call Charlie, because it's my voice on there. It's my creation. And if iHeartMedia had wanted it, they wouldn't have thrown away all the masters.
Yep.
When they bought
There
MJI
you go.
Broadcasting, they threw everything away because they didn't want to pay for storage.
Sure.
You know, you
Right.
got reel to reel masters. And I guess it was like something in the neighborhood of 8,000 pounds of boxes that were
Yeah.
just mine, just metal shop. And they literally threw them out into the garbage.
Right. Right.
So I became the
Jeez.
caretaker because it was my baby. I tried to buy it from them, and they said they couldn't sell it to me because, you know, they were gone. And the basic discussion at that point was, hey, you know, and this is from someone in the organization. Look, they threw them away. What are they going to say? Do what you want, but
Right.
you know, in other words, don't go selling them. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Well, gave them to a erstwhile organization, and they run them on Monday night.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Metal Shop
Good.
Monday. They run the current show 7 to 8, 8 to midnight, 4 hours of old classic Metal Shop shows.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Well, you heard it here, guys. You know, this is where we're going to go and remember our youth.
You can hear 'em
Remember
tonight.
Yeah, you sure can. Monday nights. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's newhdmedia.com.
newhdmedia.com. I will put that in the show notes so people can find it. newhdmedia.com.
.com.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You know, and it's nice that we're able to go back and hear these because the way things were, and I've heard these stories from a number of people because I'm kind of like a showbiz history geek. A number of people that were on Carson back in the 60s, and back in those days, once they would air a show, they would reuse the tape, just tape the next show right over.
Yeah, that one. God, I heard about that.
And there were even some beloved, we all remember in our hometowns, 60s and 70s when I was a kid growing up, how not everything was, I mean, you had your big three, you know, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox and the CW, and the WB.
They weren't there till much later.
Yeah, they weren't there until much. So a lot of these stations were a lot like UHF with Weird Al Yankovic, you know, like a small skeleton crew running it. And they had like one fellow who was the weatherman / Bozo the Clown / kids show host, right? And I would give anything to get my hands on those old shows. But after the shows were over, nobody thought of nostalgia back in those days. They thought we need closet space. There they go, right into the dumpster, you know, and they're gone.
Well,
you know,
Metal Shop, there's a guy that just posted 2 shows that he picked up. They were latter era shows of the old Metal Shop, and they're pristine. And he got them for like $35-40 each. I'm not sure where he got them or any of that, but he was talking about, you know, let me know how much you're willing to buy them for, you know. And I said, look, you know, you don't want to talk about, you know, money and amounts and stuff like that, because there could be a copyright issue that could bite you. So be careful when you do that. And the guy said, well, what are they going to do? And I go and I look, he's like 20. You know, he's like a 20-year-old guy. And in his Facebook page are every bootleg and old classic bootleg albums from Metallica. He's got a collection from hell, and that's what he does. He's a collector. The collectors did not exist for the Johnny Carson era stuff.
No,
These guys now, it's huge. One of the old Metal Shop shows that I saw on Discogs, if you've ever looked at, have you looked at that?
Yes.
Discogs had one of the old Metal Shop shows. I forget which one it was, but it was like $350.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like going, wait a minute. I didn't get paid that much for it myself. Hold on. What is the deal here? You know? So it's amazing the whole nostalgia thing. I mean, and people that were basically hoarders and collectors are now, you know, well-to-do and having pickers show on various network stations.
It is. It's the truth. It's the truth. Well, Charlie, I really appreciate you spending time with us here on 97underground.com and Foul Players Radio. It's just been wonderful to talk to you. Again, I've enjoyed your shows for years. I'm glad to see them coming back. From the bottom of my heart, all the best of luck for you in this year. I'm
Thank
really
you, Michael.
pulling for you here, and a lot of people are glad to see you come back. So if you hear the Welcome Back Cotter theme in your head sometime, welcome back, welcome back. We're glad to hear you. So, folks, you heard him right here, the legendary Charlie Kendall, Metal Shop, the only show with teeth. You can hear him on Monday afternoons on 97underground.com and on a bunch of other ones on KRFK Radio.
You get the complete list at charliekendall.com. The complete list is there with links.
Yes.
I make it easy.
Yes. And you can also, is it charliekendall.com where you can get these fashionable, beautiful t-shirts.
Pick up these lovely, lovely garments that we wear.
The babes go nuts for you. Believe me. When you're wearing a Metal Shop shirt, that is the biggest chick magnet you could ever come up with, guys. Trust me. So great. Well, Charlie, again, it's been an honor and a privilege to speak with you today. All the best. Again, we're really pulling for your success here, hoping that, this ends up being a thing for a long time to come.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening, folks. Charlie Kendall and his websites and contact information will be in the show notes, and we will see you all next time. Folks, we'd like to thank you for tuning in tonight. It was a real treat to have our interview with Charlie Kendall of Metal Shop. I tell you, that was I used to live for that show back in the 80s when it was on, and it was just great to really get a chance to meet him and hear his story. It was just great. You can hear Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop. charliekendall.com has all of his affiliates everywhere you can listen to it. You can also listen to back episodes at newhdmedia.com. So make sure you check those out. The Foul Players of Perryville are back, and we've got shows at various venues. Go to our website, foulplayersofperryville.com. If you're interested in booking us, 443-600-0446 or foulplayersperryville@yahoo.com. And every Tuesday, don't forget to tune in. Don't miss me on the Back of the Rack, the Michael Spedden Show on 97underground.com, Baltimore's Pure Rock Worldwide. And you can also download the free app and listen anytime, anywhere. You can listen on your phone, on your laptop, in your car, with a goat, on a boat, no matter where you want to go. 97underground.com and download that free app. Also, you can hear all of my interviews, 97underground.com, or actually youtube.com/@97underground Michael Spedden. We will see you all next time, folks. Thank you all for tuning in. Remember, foulplayersradio.com, youtube.com/@foulplayersradio. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button and give us an honest review. And folks, this is Michael Spedden signing off. We will see you all next time. Thanks for listening.